While the Touring and Elite might be the most plush and opulent trim levels of the Pilot, the EX and EXL models are the ones that are giving you the most bang for your buck. Today I'm going to show you guys what the EX and EXL models have to offer. Let's get started. So starting out on the outside of the Pilot, you'll notice that it's new for 2019, which is nice, and it's a lot cleaner looking in my opinion, and it looks more like an SUV. So you'll see that you have full LED headlights. Well, at least the low beam is LED, the high beam is halogen, and it's an LED projector, and you have an LED daytime running light around that wraps around the light, and you also have LED fog lights as well, and incandescent turn signal bulbs. So Honda did massage the front end, like the front bumper. This is new, and the grille is also new. Coming around the side, you'll notice on the EX and EXL trims, you have 18-inch alloy wheels, so this is the design that you'll find. There's a bunch of different aftermarket wheels as well, but these are the standard wheels that you get. It's a pretty nice design. I kind of like it, but some people have not been liking Honda's newer wheel designs, but I'm okay with it. And you also see that the silhouette is pretty much identical to last year's model, but it still looks really nice. People do say it looks like a van, and I kind of do see that depending on what angle that you look at it from, but I don't really have any complaints. But I would like to see in the next generation Pilot that it looks a little bit more like an SUV and they bring back the box a little bit. And finally, coming along to the rear end of the Pilot, Honda didn't do too much, but they did just enough to fix the problems I had with it. So last year, for the 2018 model, the reverse lights were underneath down towards the bumper, well, the lower bumper, and now Honda put LEDs, which look really nice, and they fixed them to the tailgate, which is one problem fixed for me. And they also did something that I like and added clear turn signal lenses to the turn signals, but it would have been nice if they did continue the LED route with that. Everything else is pretty much the same. And you also have LED taillights and brake lights, and they wrap around this whole thing here, which looks actually pretty cool at night. So now getting to the trunk of the Pilot, the EX doesn't get a power tailgate, but the EXL does, so that's one difference if you want to take note of that. Now, behind the third row, which is standard on every Pilot, you have a pretty decent amount of cargo volume. You can fit a few backpacks and a few suitcases. Maybe not big suitcases like full-size 24 or 27-inch bags, but you have pretty usable space. And you also have this little under tray here, which you could put even more stuff or hide stuff, and you can also take it out and have a deeper load floor, or flip it around, and if you have mulch or something, you don't have to worry about getting the carpet wet. And folding the third row isn't too bad either. You just pull this lever on either side, it'll fold the armrest, well, the headrest down, pull it, and you're all good. And folding the second row is also slight work, because there's just this little handle here which you also use to recline the second row seats. You just pull it and it folds right down. And the second row is a 60-40 split, so it's always good to know. If you do want 7 passengers and a center console in the middle, you have to get at least the Touring. So the EX and EXL are all 8-passenger vehicles. Just before we get in, the last thing I want to talk about is that the exterior color of this particular Pilot is called White Diamond Pearl. I like white cars because personally I have a white car myself, so I just think every Pilot looks really sharp in white. So, since this is the EX, this also applies to the EXL, you get a smart key access system. So here's the key fob. It's Honda's regular smart key. So there's your lock, unlock, trunk release, remote start, and panic button. So if you do want to use remote start, just hit the lock button once, and then hit the remote start button and hold it. It'll flash. There it goes. And then if you want to shut it off, you just hold the same button again. So with that, you have the smart key access system, so you can just walk up to the car, and to unlock it, just grab the handle and it'll beep twice, and then to lock it, just press this little black button here and it'll beep once. So inside, the biggest difference from the EX and the EXL is that you get a leather interior with the EXL and a cloth interior with the EX, but you still get this pretty nice beige cloth interior for the EX. The cloth seats actually feel pretty nice. They're actually very comfortable, but they're not that supportive, and that's not something I would expect from a Pilot anyway. It's just more of a comfy car, but they are nice. The driver's seat is a 10-way power adjustable seat, and the passenger seat is just manual, which is fine.
That's just fine. That's just fine. It's fine to have.
Now looking at the door panel, it's all soft touch materials up here, so you have a soft touch top piece. You have a brushed aluminum looking trim over here with a soft touch armrest. The driver and passenger side windows are automatic and the rears are just regular. There's your door locks, window locks, and the mirror controls are right here. And right here is your fuel cap release, and there is no trunk release because it's just a manual trunk. But you do have a bunch of different storage here, like a little bottle holder, and you can put cards or whatever you want in there. And right here is the hood release. Now looking at these buttons over here, you have your pre-collision braking on and off button, your lane departure warning button, traction control off, and your econ button, which makes the car feel really mushy and roly-poly, but it adds maybe a mile a gallon or two. If you're familiar with the current gen Pilot, you should be pretty familiar with this. Honda did just add the steering wheel from the Odyssey and a new infotainment system, which actually both work very nice, and also new gauges. But shutting the door, now you do have push button start, and that is standard from the LX through the Elite, and of course the EX and EXL models do have that. So you just put your foot on the brake and press the start button to go. So you do have the 3.5 liter V6 as standard with 280 horsepower and 262 pound-feet of torque. It's the same motor found in the Odyssey and the Ridgeline, which is a really good engine. We'll talk about that later. But talking about the steering wheel, it is a 4-spoked steering wheel. On the EXL, it is leather wrapped and it may feel a little bit different, and you do have some grips on the sides on that model as well. But on this model, it's just the regular steering wheel, but it still is a nice design. So on the left side of the wheel, you have your Bluetooth and audio controls. So this button allows you to pick up, hang up, and voice control. And over here is the volume control. And these buttons over here control the center display, which I'll go over in a second. And there's a back button. Now the horn sounds kind of weird. I don't know. These newer Hondas have had some strange horns, besides the Accords, which are actually pretty nice. Now over here are your cruise control settings. So main turns it on and off. There's your adaptive cruise control button and your lane keep assist button. And this is just set, resume, and cancel. Now looking at the center display, you use the home button and this little D-pad and that little D-pad on the wheel to control it. So there's not a lot here, but there is a trip computer, which you can see the information, the torque monitor, which shows what the all-wheel drive system is doing, and also this button over here behind the shifter controls the VTM4 all-wheel drive system and what it does. So if you keep pressing it, on the display, it will show different drive modes like normal, snow, mud, and sand. Sand is like the last option for you if you really can't get out of anything. But like what I was saying, if you just keep continuing to scroll through, it has the phone, now playing, maintenance minder, settings, and then this changes the units to miles to kilometers, and then a blank screen if you want. And you also have a tachometer on the very top. There's the shift indicator and a digital speedometer. There's no analog speedometer anywhere on this car, which may be a bust to you, but I'm kind of fine with it. On the left side of the gauges, you have your engine temperature, and on the right side, you have your fuel gauge. The gauges are actually pretty easy to read, especially that it is digital, but they may be something to get used to if you're not used to it. Now looking at the center display, it's pretty much all new for 2019. It was revised compared to the last year's model. This more likely resembles the new Odyssey's infotainment screen, which I really like. It's really easy to use, and I like how it was on the Odyssey, but the Odyssey's system was really laggy, even on every Odyssey that I've tried. So I just thought it was a single vehicle glitch or something. But you do have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which is nice. And there's a bunch of different things that you can do with this new Honda Link system, even without rear entertainment. This is the same thing that you'll find on the EXL, but you can get optional navigation, which is powered by Garmin on the EXL. Now down here you have Tri-Zone Automatic Climate Control, which is pretty intuitive, and I can reach everything while I'm driving, which is nice. I like that you have a bunch of hard touch buttons here, unlike some other cars, even newer Hondas, where there's a bunch of buttons in the infotainment display. Like the fan speed is right there, recirculation is right there, AC on or off is right there, the modes are right there, the rear settings to turn it on or off, changing the settings, or the rear lock is right there for the rear climate control. Some people have mistaken that button for a rear differential lock, but that's not what it is. And there's the front and rear defrost with the heated mirrors as well. Down here you have heated seats, which are nice, and they are triple stage, and you have a little compartment here which you could probably fit your phone in there if you wanted to, but it's just nicer to have right there. And right here you have a USB port, which does charge your phone and is what goes to Apple CarPlay. And right here is a 12-volt power outlet, which is nice. You can put a USB dongle or whatever you want in there. Now the EX and EXL get the 6-speed automatic transmission, also the LX. And when you put the Pilot into reverse, you have a multi-angle backup camera, so you have a wide view, a normal view, and a top-down view. And you also have rear cross-traffic alert, and that is also part of Honda Sensing, which is standard on all models for 2019. You have 2 cup holders over here, and like I said, there's that terrain management button. Over here in the center console, you have another USB port and an aux jack. It is a 2.5 amp USB and power outlet over here. And this is a little rubber tray, so you can take it out and clean it up if you want to, if you spilled coffee or something. And you have 2 armrests, which are not adjustable, but they go down to the right height, at least for me. Looking at the glove box, it is damped, which is nice. It's kind of on the average side.
That's what. If you say that's what she said one more time, I'm gonna pop you.
You do have the manual in there, and there's a bunch of junk. One thing that I noticed about this particular Pilot is that this trim piece is kind of weird. It fell off, and I've been trying to push it back, and it just doesn't want to go. So, I don't know. That's probably been something that's happened at the dealership itself. I don't think Honda would let something like that fly, but you never know. There's always some unicorn in the group. And over here you have visors with lights and mirrors on both sides. And over here you have your light controls, a manual dimming rear view mirror, and here more of your light controls. And you have a conversation glass and a sunglass holder up there. On the EX you do not get a sunroof, but on the EXL you do. Coming to the rear seats, material quality does kind of deteriorate as you get into the back. This upper panel isn't soft touch like it is in the front, but you still have that same soft touch armrest. Now, a Pilot trademark that every Pilot that I know has had since the first generation is that you get 2 cup holders up here on top of the door, and you have some storage compartments over here. So in the back of the Pilot, the driver's seat is almost all the way back in its tracks. I'm about 5'8", and the second row seat is all the way back in its tracks because it is slidable. And I have about 4 or 5 inches of legroom, and I can fit my feet under the seat. So I'm actually really comfortable, and I think you could fit 3 average-sized people in the back of the Pilot. Now, you do have 2 air vents and rear climate control over here, which is standard on EX models and above, which I do appreciate. And on touring and elite trims, you can get heated rear seats as well. And you have a little storage compartment over here. Now, looking at the center armrest, it is padded, and you do have 2 more cup holders, which is nice. And over here, you have some more lights over here. And the third middle seat belt rests up in the ceiling right there. Now, getting to the third row, it's really easy, and Honda's been doing this since when the 2016 Pilot first came out, and they even introduced it in the current gen MDX back in 2014. So you just press this button, and it's an electronic actuator that unlocks the seat and lets you get into the third row pretty easily. The step in height is not too bad. It's better than some other vehicles that I've encountered. And closing myself in, so the seat slide is all the way back by default, but you could ask your friends, whoever's in the front, to slide the seat forward. But even if the seat is all the way back, my feet do fit under the seat, and I have maybe a palm's thick of legroom, so it's not too bad. My knees are a little bit high off the ground, which is just something that you generally notice in mid-size SUVs with third rows. But you do have air vents back here, and 3 cup holders on this side, and 2 and 3 cup holders on the other side. And some models will even give you some storage to put inside of here. Headroom is actually pretty good too. If I sit all the way back, my head is not even anywhere close to touching the ceiling. So that is a plus for Honda. Now to get out, you just press this, and it'll make some sad noise. That's kind of funny. And then just open the door and get out. So under the hood of the Pilot, like I said earlier, you get Honda's corporate 3.5 liter V6, so it's their J35. And in this application, it makes 280 horsepower and 262 pound-feet of torque. So it's the same that you'll find in the Odyssey and the Ridgeline. So it's a pretty good powertrain, and it is mated to a 6-speed manual in this model, but you can get a 9-speed automatic in the Touring and Elite trims, but most people will option for the 6-speed in these lower models. And you should be expecting about 18 miles per gallon in the city, 26 on the highway, and a combined rating of 21. So that's not too bad, but I think you're really going to be seeing the high teens with this car, and maybe probably the mid-teens, like 15 miles per gallon, just depending on how you drive and where you're driving. So behind the wheel of the Pilot EXL and EX, my first impressions of the driving is that the steering is really light, especially around parking lots, so that might be a plus. I think it is. It's definitely not that bad. And throttle response is actually pretty good. This is my first experience with the 6-speed automatic. There's not that much road noise, which I would expect, especially with the smaller tires. And the ride is actually a little bit better than you'll see on the Touring and Elite because they have the big 19-inch wheels. Another thing, this model doesn't have auto start-stop, so I personally don't really like it that much, so that might be something good for you. But we're gonna see how the acceleration is. It's actually kind of quick. Okay, so like I said, you have 280 horsepower and 262 pound-feet of torque in the Pilot, and it actually gets this thing out of its way pretty quickly. And the 6-speed automatic shifts pretty well, actually, so there's nothing really to complain about that. I'm actually having a good time, and at 50 miles an hour, I'm at about 12 to 1500 RPM, so it's not bad at all. And on expansion joints or just little bridges, it's not floaty. It actually takes the bumps quite well, so that's something I'm pretty pleased with. Now, there's no sport mode with this one. The 6 speeds just get a regular drive and that's it, but the 9 speeds do get paddle shifters on the wheel and a sport mode that changes how the car shifts. Now, around corners, the Pilot actually is doing pretty well. It's not one of the sportiest vehicles in the segment, and of course it's no canyon carver like a Mazda CX-9 if we're talking about SUVs. Visibility is actually pretty nice, except the D-pillar, which any SUV you'll have a pretty thick D-pillar, but everything else is actually very nice, and it's easy to see around this thing. And it actually doesn't feel as big as it looks.
That's what she said.
Which is definitely a plus. Now for 2019, you don't get lane watch anymore, so that might be a bummer if you did like it, but Honda did add the blind spot monitor to both sides. And yeah, around corners, it's not that bad. But just with normal day-to-day driving, the Pilot actually responds pretty well. Now, in little tight areas, the turning radius is actually pretty tight. I'm surprised. In this big car, it's actually not bad at all. There is a little bit of engine noise, which I do notice. I don't have a problem with it because my car is pretty much straight piped. Now let's get on it again. Now you do hear VTEC, which I like. This J35 with the direct injection and such, you really hear VTEC crack, and I like it. The ride is actually pretty nice, like I said before. It does wallow around if you do push it a little bit, but it's not too bad. The brakes are actually pretty nice. They're kind of progressive. I do kind of prefer the 6-speed over the 9-speed just because it does feel like the 9-speed shifts a lot in that touring that I drove a few months ago, but this 6-speed feels a little bit more intelligent. But definitely going around these roundabouts and these little switchback corners, I'm having a good time. You definitely feel how large it is when you're going around a corner, but it's not something overwhelming. Like I drove a Sienna a little while ago, and that thing was just, I wouldn't say a mess, but to be polite, it was interesting. Now we're gonna get on the highway, so I'm gonna see how the acceleration is again. But normal power, if you're just getting on and off the road and, you know, whatever, it's not bad at all. It's pretty good. Now there's no sport mode, like I said, so you just put your foot down and go. So, we're gonna go. Wow!
Wow! Oh my god!
This thing goes. Oh! I'm surprised the Pilot is making me laugh like a little kid, but I never was able to try the touring that I drove on the highway, but wow! That's actually really good. I'm surprised them like this. I know this engine in the Odyssey, this makes the Odyssey rip, and this Pilot, it's definitely more than plenty for what people will normally be doing. The lane keep assist and adaptive cruise control. And let's see, it's reading the lanes. I have both of my hands off the wheel, and it's taking the lanes straight. There's a bump. It's after a little bit, it does say that you need steering required. Oh, there's a dickhead in a Camry that cut across 3 lanes. Okay. And it does slow down, and it is kind of freaky. But I am going to get off here. Let's see if it'll slow down. Oh, that's freaky. It slows down. And you can change the distance like how I said before. Taking this little corner off here, I feel pretty nice. I mean, as a regular daily driver, and for what this car is, it does a fine job at hauling kids around and hauling kids to and from school and soccer practice. Because, you know, in reality, that's what this car is going to be doing. Oh, now the lane departure warning. On this one, it doesn't beep anymore from what I noticed. It just vibrates the wheel. Which both can kind of get annoying, but you can easily just turn it off on the dash, is what I like. Now, speaking about pressing buttons, I can really reach everything pretty well, at least from how I'm sitting, and I'm sitting pretty comfortably, so that's nice. And the audio system is another thing that I wanted to try out on this EX model, and the EXL has pretty much the same audio system, and it sounds pretty good. The emergency braking does work, if you're wondering, because if you have a wild Toyota Avalon in front of you that suddenly turns and slams on the brakes, it does work. But like what I was saying, the audio system does work pretty well. On the pre-refresh models, I do remember hearing people complaining about how it sounded, but it actually sounds pretty decent on this model. Now, going around some weird bumps, it does get a little bit noisy when you're going over bumps, but it's not overbearing. And wow, this is a nice corner. On this, it takes it pretty well. Now, if I do remember correctly, this does kind of have the same all-wheel drive system that you'll find in the Acura MDX. It's kind of like a slightly detuned version of super handling all-wheel drive, so it does kind of help you around corners and such if you stay on the gas a little bit. Let's try the acceleration again. I mean, it's not like it's a fast car, but it just throws you back in your seat, so it's kind of exhilarating. There is a little bit of wind noise, just a smidge, which I'm picking up, but it's nothing too bad. It's around, I'm at 50 miles an hour right now, so it's not terrible. So for the Pilot, just like 2018, it starts at the LX, which is $31,450, and these are two-wheel drive models, mind you. Then there's the EX, which is $34,330. Then there's the EXL, which is $37,760. Then there's the Touring, which is $42,520. Then there's the Elite, which is $48,020. And now new for 2019, Honda sensing is standard on all models, so that's LX through Elite, and that includes the blind spot monitor, pre-collision braking, automatic high beams, and a lot of other different features. Now about competitors, the main competitor for the Pilot would be the Toyota Highlander. Then there's stuff like the new Subaru Ascent, Volkswagen Chevy Atlas, Traverse, Ford Explorer, Nissan Pathfinder, Kia Sorento, and the Hyundai Santa Fe XL. And I feel like there's a few others. So I hope you guys enjoyed getting up close and personal with this 2019 Honda Pilot EX and also the EXL. And I hope you enjoyed the video. I don't know if I said that already, but I hope it brought some educational value, and I hope you learned something about the Pilot EX models. And I post videos just like this at least once a week. My upload schedule is a little bit funky just because of school, but stay tuned because I have plenty of other cool videos coming out in the coming weeks from a bunch of different brands, so not just Honda and stuff. So I hope you stay tuned for that, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye, peeps.